make it up at the end. One E and a, two E and a, here we go. And it's just using index and middle fingers on the fretting hand or the picking hand. And I believe Mark had the question of, let's see, what were we asking? We were talking about how to basically optimize warm-ups for a fingerstyle approach. So let's do that. We're going to start with you know, the individual single note lines that we're used to. Then we're going to work on you know, sort of beginning to intermediate to advancing finger picking patterns. Just that they're super approachable, super easy to do, low barrier for entry type stuff. But we can develop these things to really, really work for us and add some serious punch and flair to our guitar playing. So that's good to know. So let's go ahead and just kind of just start working through the old breathing cycle. And if you would like to, you can also incorporate, so picking hand could be ring, middle, index, or index, middle, ring, or whatever you want to do, but I'm using 3 fingers or 2 fingers, or just taking the fingers for a walk this morning. And we're walking down the road, and it's a little bit different than using a plectrum, but we're going to be okay. And if this is too fast for me, then I can easily cut my losses and practice 2 attacks per beat, or even 1 attack per beat. And you'll notice that the metronome is running at 60, it's running hot at 60 beats per minute. I changed the oil in it this morning, so we should be in pretty good shape. And I haven't replaced the battery in this thing for, I don't know, I can't remember the last time I changed the 9 volt in this thing, I really can't. This thing just keeps on ticking. So we just tried to work on tone, functioning tone. So I'm going thumb to the D string first, second, and third on the remaining strings for the warm-up. It's pretty cool. Okay, so thumb. So you're using an individual finger for each string. That's good. That's the finger independence that we're looking for. And so what Mark is, I think, let me know if this is accurate. Is this a reflection of what you just said? So we're starting with the thumb on the low E, A, D string, so basically the bass region of the instrument. And I really appreciate you mentioning this, because the bass region of the instrument in classical music and folk, American folk, many styles of folk, fingerstyle, the bottom E, A, and D strings, regardless of the tuning, are typically considered bass notes and will be mastered by the thumb, right? So we got this. And then when we get to each subsequent higher string, those are typically governed by the index, middle, and ring fingers. Now, when you start looking at single note soloists or true like finger style, those of us who decided to, you know, we have a determination to become very, very high level fingerstyle players, will start to work on more than 1 finger per string. So, for example, I might, instead of using a pick to do downstroke and then upstroke or alternate pick, that's just a continuum, a binary continuum of downs and upstrokes, which is, you know, obvious, right? Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then you can use 1 attack per beat, or 2 attacks per beat, or 3 attacks per beat, or 4 attacks per beat, or 5 attacks per beat, or 6 attacks per beat, or 7 attacks per beat, and so on. So that basically is what I'm doing here with using the index and middle fingers to sort of like walk. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the right hand, aren't I? So the right hand is the picking hand. It should look like this a little bit. If you were a classical guitar player, I know that all of these fingers, you can see that all of these fingernails are shaved, basically angled, so that when we're addressing the string set, everything is all the same sort of length, right? All of these fingers are right here. You know, the middle finger isn't saying, I'm the tallest. Well, no one else has anything to do, but this is what happens with fingerstyle guitar players. We end up starting to do this, we start to do this, we start to do this. We start to make these concessions so that each finger grouping can have full access to the string set at any one moment. But none of this matters unless we have a reference point. The thumb is going to be the reference point, the thumb on the picking hand. Once I come away from this is the string. Once I come away from, and this is 0, home bass. I'm going away from bass, now I need to RTB, and then, or return to bass, or return to 0 RTC. And I know what that feels like, because I have a memory here of where that finger goes. The finger goes away from 0 and comes back to 0. Then I have a record of plucking away and then coming back to 0, plucking away and coming back to 0, and then trying to come right back to 0, plucking away and coming back to 0 based on what I feel, the memory of how each finger feels right next door to one another. So this is an important posture right here. This is a good cellular structure. But this doesn't always need to occur, right? This can be going on, and then so there. I'd like to also to me these are all very different tools. If I'm a free climber, I'm using those little rubber coated ballet slippers to get my feet on the rocks and provide additional friction. If I'm an ice climber, I'm using a completely different set of footwear, right? And they all accomplish the same object, which is to travel vertically up through some technical terrain. It's world travel. I mean, but we're still traveling by foot, by hand, by axe, by fingertip. But the techniques change. The gear changes, even though we're trying to attempt the same ascent, different seasons, one time it's going to be a nice bulge, and next time it's going to be a clean piece of granite schist that is just baking in the sun all day long. So different tool sets. So good question, Mark. That's a great question. So great observation. So I'm working through the single note line. We're just going to speed this thing up and get through to the 1, 2, 3, 4 things. We're going to just say that we've done all of the 2 finger groupings and 3 finger groupings. Now we're just going to start with 4 finger groupings. So we can really put into practice some, really great sort of fingerstyle observances today. So let's go ahead and just start here together again and take it from there. We are at a speed too. Hey Lee. Oh, Polyphia. Yeah, what a brilliant guitar tone. Brilliant guitar work. Brilliant just band work all together. And when you can, get a group together and sort of play at that level, it's a beautiful thing. Let your soul shine. Good morning. So I'm going to thumb the D string for a second. Yeah, that looks exactly right, or exactly what I'm doing. All right, good. Now I'm working between the index, just only the index finger, Tirando and apoyando are basically the free stroke versus the rest stroke. We need to know these things as fingerstyle guitar players because one day we might want to we might want to study Paco de Lucia. You know what I mean? We might want to know how to do this. If the guitar was in tune, it sounds better. But you have the idea where the fingers work this way as well as this way. So the fingers go out, and they go out like this, and then they also work like this. They work like this, they also work like this. We need to know the difference between the rest stroke and the free stroke. So this is a perfect environment, perfect climate to absorb some of this information. So I know we haven't yet talked about this here on this channel. And definitely not in the morning ritual. So we'll start with the rest stroke, and then I'm going to illustrate the rest stroke using only the index finger. The rest stroke is exactly what it is. We pluck through the string, and we come to rest on the next. We come to rest on the next. Let me see on the next smallest string. And then sometimes our thumb will be anchored on another string. And then sometimes our thumb will be sort of like not anchored on the string. So different techniques for different things, I guess. So the other thing that I really think it's important to know is the rest stroke, where we're not stopping on the next smaller string. We're actually using a more controlled sort of picking sequence. And then that's, middle finger only, and then return to 0. So that's a completely different feel. Now our hands are mobile to go everywhere. The rest stroke keeps our fingers connected to the string set so that we really don't have that true mobility that we would have with the free stroke. So our rest, here's the rest stroke and free strokes. When Matteo, Mr. Mancuso, just sort of starts doing the what does he do? He sort of does these scalar runs, and that's all sort of free stroke, right? That's what we're working on today, free stroke, with the index and middle fingers. That does leave a little bit to be sort of wanted because we end up leaving behind open strings that we cannot control, and so that's when you start seeing guitarists sort of start tying a sock or whatever, they put a little dampening tool around the neck of the guitar, so that way they don't have the open strings don't ring behind especially in an electric guitar, the open strings don't ring behind the open strings we're leaving behind from the fretted tones. So we're here, down here somewhere, 1 E and 2 E and fret 7, and we're getting ready to descend to position 6 here. But now we could introduce fingers, the ring finger. We could also just come back to the free stroke with only the middle finger and the rest stroke, and then work on tonal development that way. Usually this starts with like quarter notes or eighth notes, at 60 beats per minute. And this requires a tremendous amount of focus when we first get started with this technique. The rest And so, that being said, we have 4 fingers on the picking hand, and the fourth finger becomes the sole provider here. Show us your tremolo, please. Show me. All right, let's see. I've thrown the water and come out with fish. I think the grouping you described comes in really handy, no pun intended, when you hit the fourth. Four fingers, yes. Put a high A on your high E peg. Very cool. Who's that? Good morning, good morning. Thank you for taking a moment to drop us a line here in the live chat. Very cool, very appreciative. And then, so now we're just growing the pinky finger, we're just growing the pinky finger, And the fingernail isn't quite the right shape, but it's getting there. These are all exercises that really, so if you're not really good at breathing, you're going to get good really quickly, or you're going to end up putting this guitar right out through your window, man. I'll tell you what, these are probably some of the most frustrating and hardest earned techniques that I've ever encountered on the guitar. And that's no joke, these are difficult times. These are going to breathe hard fingerstyle people right here. These exercises are slow going, but very, very formidable when it comes to character building. So don't forget to breathe in all of that goodness and breathe out. You can make yourself sick playing stuff like this. Time to make donuts. Hey, nice to see you, Joe. I'm glad you're here, and I'd like to order a dozen of those donuts, please. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we use all of these fingers. Let's start with the pinky, index, pinky, ring, middle, index. And it starts to become more challenging when we start using groups of 3s instead of groups of 4s. So those are all worth doing. So if we start with pinky, ring, middle, index, and then we use the 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise. I'm just working on the free stroke, and I'm keeping that thumb parked where it belongs. So I'm focusing on breath once again. And then wrist angle has a lot to do with, your wrist this way, your wrist also this way and this way. All of those angles will become comfortable for us as we start to generate good quality tone using all 4 fingers on the picking hand. So depending on the trick here is, I guess we need to understand the fundamental here. So the fundamental is having so between the elbow, I guess I need to explain this just for myself as a reminder, between the elbow and the wrist, that halfway point is typically where this arm will sit on the guitar. And that will be our sort of like, it can telescope, it can telescope and retract, it can protract, it can do all of these things. It can move around a little bit, but I think basically find a comfortable perch upon which we can create this. And then the next thing is to create this not too relaxed, but we have this nice, you can see it's a nice arch all the way to the fingertips, right? It's a sort of a relaxed arch all the way to the fingertips. And that's really where we want to be, and we want to remediate any tension that we may be holding in our forearm and certainly in our fingertips, because that's where the tone will come from eventually. You'll see. You wait, you'll see. I want one with smoky and you get, yeah, right on, man. When I used to use plastic finger picks, oh, that's right, I remember those days, ping pong balls, knee press on nails. I would use 4 of them on fingers because we could do some serious 4-finger picking on blues chords and such. Only occasionally useful. We don't use a thumb pick these days. Sounds better to my ear. Nice, yeah. I only use index and yeah, I got it right there, Pima. So developing tone with these fingernails and these fingertips, it really is a challenge, especially for, you know, if we're just starting out, really trying to get, I got a little poke on my pinky finger and I can feel it, you know. But when I start to angle my wrist so that it's sort of up this way, that starts, all of these mechanisms influence tonal production, right? So we'll just complete this exercise. And we'll go ahead and start talking about sort of like finger picking, the finger picking end of finger style. And I'm just getting familiar, you know, with how much force, how much velocity do I need on each finger. Good breath goes a long way. And it's a good idea to get familiar with playing different groups and patterns. So fingers 1, 2, 3, and then cycling 4, 3, 2, 1. Around a 3-finger group pattern here. Those are all things that we eventually become familiar with, and it's a wonderful, wonderful world to be part of fingerstyle. So let's start with something that Adam. Good morning, Adam. Do you do upstrokes with the pad of your finger? Oh yeah. Okay. Are you still here, Adam? Or downstrokes? Fingernails, index nail, yep. Can you please play country song, sir? Oh, yeah, actually, you know what? This morning, if you were here from the beginning of the, okay, good, Adam. We'll go ahead and talk about that here, because now we're starting to transition away from the single note playing to like more like the, you know, maybe there's some kind of moving bass in here. So we were thinking like, you know, say Sweet Child of Mine or something. There we go, right here. like to frame the fingernail so that it's just longer than the profile of the round fingertip. I like to use these like they are shaped like little picks so that you actually like have the shape of the pick, because the string rides the end, the string, if you will ride the pick down to the end and then be flung off, right? So the pick will fling the string off and set it to work. So this is the same theory that this will be riding down the fingernail and then be flung off at the end of the fingernail. So all of those shapes really deeply influence what we're doing, right? Let's see what this is. Hey Mark. I had to grab my guitar to figure out what I'm doing. That's really good. Can you please play a country song? So let's play. I was thinking at the beginning of this session that we would do something like Bloody Mary Morning, or some maybe Georgia. So what's that? So and then let's go ahead and do this a little slow. So just think about Joe. So we have the three, and then do, sol, mi, sol, and then we move from mi down to re, down to E minor, but then the 6 is on the top, and then there's the A, a sharp 4 with the A, or the A dominant. E minor at 9. So we definitely can sort of fingerstyle around with some country music, country style. Another one that's really great is Bloody Mary Morning. So let's see what we can do with a different style of fingerstyle. And we'll try to align it with the 60 beats per minute. So we're playing along with the measurement. I want to follow the measurement. I want the measurement to be the continuum. I'm just starting in G, and the song may not be in G, and it might be F, but I'm just going to remember. So it's a bloody there's a lot sort of going on here that's different from sort of self-accompanying, you know. You know, it just gets really fun to sort of just track that stuff around. And there are different, really wildly different modalities and techniques for fingerstyle. So I wanted to just introduce some of the wildness, the wild, and then just focus in on how we can build those patterns just with open strings, right? So we're starting basically these open D, G, E, and I, E. We could start with 2 fingers and then down to 1. So understanding 1, and then, so I'm focusing on 1 because if I angle my wrist in too much, then I end up hooking this string with my fingernail, and I get a tone that is not always desirable. It's a good tone to know how to make, but it's not always desirable. So I have to focus on getting that wrist sort of not bent negatively. Sometimes I want to bend it negatively, but sometimes, most often, I want to have sort of a positive bend or arch in it, like this, or have it be straight angle, and then just sort of arched out a little bit. So that's a good thumb position for me. And then the thumb typically comes from, working this all the way back to the wrist. The thumb is basically moving. This all connects with the string. This is all one unit of approach, right? So I try to keep all of this as one unit. And that gives a good solid transfer, and it gives the appropriate angle for the string to ride off of the fingernail and to pluck the string. Looking for the chords for which tune? Georgia? Tuxedo Cat is back. Hey, what's going on this morning? How are you? Wow, this is great. It's great to see the old faces just popping back up. And we're working on just a forward roll. So we started with a thumb. Mark, so you're looking for the chords for what is Bloody Mary Morning in Georgia. So I'm thinking, let's turn this into Georgia, starting with the open D string. And then we could use maybe the A7. So what's funny is the D here with the D in the bass could also function as an E minor 7 with the D in the bass, right? So same chord. chords are. So G, and then B7. Let me just show you the chords here. So we have the G, just the open sort of Bob Dylan G, and then the B7, which is 2, 1, 2, open, and then 2. And then the E minor, just a straight ahead E minor, and then A7, and then G down, G walks down to E minor 9, or just E minor 4, and then you can do a 4/5 back to the 1, and then we turn it around with a 1, and then maybe the 4, and then the 4 minor back to the 1 again. So what is it? Alright, so there's some other stuff going on there, but that's basically one chord, and then the 3 dominant, and then the 6 minor, and then the 2 dominant, or the 5 of the 5, which resolves a whole step back down to the 1, to the 6 minor, and then here's the turnaround, the 4, and then the 5, back to the 1. Latitude in songs like this to build these beautiful sort of arrangements and chordal arrangements, but we're sort of back with in the saddle with the sort of the right hand just kind of pumping through and just trying to find a good place to create good quality tone. To get the pinky finger involved with the picking hand, I'm just opening it up to the A string. So 1, 2, let's do this. So this turns into 5 attacks per beat if we really wanted to use. We'll have to start. There's that's available, but typically we'll go ahead and use the. So what is this G? So if this becomes a G chord, here's a really easy way to make this useful, right? And really fun to practice. Now, let me just give you the sort of the G major scale, on the high E string. Let's check that out. What happens if, So we have Do, Re, and Mi, and then Fa, and then Sol, and then La, and then Ti, and then Do. top. We could go descending down to the 7 and then to the open high E's. So we have the 6. Oh, very nice light pastoral sound. And then we move up to the leading tone, which leads us to 9. Because we want to create anticipation in the listener's ear. We don't want to go right back to where it's expected all the time. That's good. So that's all forward roll, or just forward roll. All we need to do to create a completely different environment here is to use the reverse roll, or place the melody first. So let's take a look at using sort of a combination roll of forward and reverse. This creates a different time signature for us, so we become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1,